I planted myself at that sticky bar on purpose, wearing the dress Marcus hated, positioned exactly where the security camera would catch the worst angle. People assume I was too wasted to notice Ryan's hand sliding up my thigh, but I'd been counting the drinks, tracking the timeline, orchestrating every humiliating frame. Now my engagement is ash, and my entire friend group has labeled me as the cautionary tale they always knew I'd become. The part nobody understands is that I wasn't seeking validation from those men. I was desperately trying to manufacture proof that Marcus loved me enough to pull me out of the fire I set. By the time I explain what really happened, the private chat, the live stream, the scoreboard, you'll see why I'm the villain of my own story. But first you need to understand why a woman destroys the one thing she claims to value most. The trouble started 6 months before the bar, back when Marcus's orthopedic residency swallowed him whole. He'd come home smelling of antiseptic and exhaustion, his scrubs still warm from the hospital dryer, and kiss my forehead like I was his sister. I knew the schedule, 70-hour weeks, overnight calls, emergencies that canceled our dinner plans. I understood, really I did. But understanding didn't fill the hollow space where our conversations used to live. I'd find myself staring at his dinner plate, still set with the cloth napkins I'd ironed, growing cold, while I scrolled through other couples' date night photos. My phone became a third party in our relationship, a witness to my growing resentment. I work as a behavioral therapist for teenagers with attachment disorders, which makes my own behavior exponentially more pathetic. I spend my days teaching kids how to express needs appropriately, while I was suffocating in silence at home. Marcus would collapse into bed at 2 a.m., and I'd lie awake calculating how many minutes we'd actually spoken that week. The number kept shrinking. 23 minutes. 16. 9. I started keeping a log in my therapy notes app, tucked between patient files about trauma responses and maladaptive coping mechanisms. The irony doesn't escape me. My coworker Jenna noticed first. We were eating lunch in the staff room when she asked why I hadn't mentioned the wedding planning in weeks. I laughed it off, said we were just busy, but she caught the tremor in my voice. That afternoon, she invited me to trivia night with her boyfriend's friend group. Just to get out of your head, she promised. I should have recognized the pattern from my own clinical training avoidant attachment seeking proximity through performance. Instead, I saw it as a lifeline, a way to breathe. The first time I went, I wore my regular jeans and a sweater. I nursed a single beer and answered questions about 80s movies. Ryan, Jenna's boyfriend's college roommate, sat across from me respectful, distant. He asked about my work with the kids and I talked about trauma responses until his eyes glazed over. It felt safe. Marcus texted exactly once that night, "Hope you're having fun, babe. Surgery ran late. See you tomorrow." I read it 17 times, searching for the subtext, the hidden accusation, the thread of jealousy. Nothing. That's when the idea first wiggled into my consciousness like a parasite. What if I could provoke the reaction I needed? What if I could create a controlled crisis that would force Marcus to show up physically and emotionally? The thought made me flush with shame, and I drowned it in a second beer. But it didn't drown. It learned to swim. The following Tuesday, I wore a lower-cut top, just slightly. Enough that Ryan's eyes flickered down once during a conversation about weekend plans. I felt a sick, electric jolt in my stomach, not attraction, but anticipation. Like setting up an experiment. I told myself it was harmless, just observation. That's the lie that gets you mistaking data collection for intimacy. By the third week, I'd established a pattern. Tuesday trivia, O'Malley's pub, the corner booth where the lighting was dim and the whiskey sours were strong. I started arriving before the others, staking our claim, ordering around before anyone sat down. The bartender, Mike, knew my name and my order. I told myself this was community connection. Really, I was building a stage. Marcus noticed the shift in my routine, but only barely. "You seem more social lately," he mumbled one morning, his eyes already on his phone, checking patient updates. I waited for the follow-up question, "Who are these friends? What do you do? Do any men hit on you?" But it never came. Just a kiss on the cheek and he was gone, leaving me with my experiment and my desperation. The small decision that sealed everything happened on a Thursday. I'd had an especially brutal session with a teenage girl who self-harms to feel something, anything. Her words echoed in my skull. If they really cared, they'd stop me. I created a private Instagram story just for my closest friends, called it the Tuesday Chronicles. The first post was innocent, my drink, the neon sign, a caption about needing nights like these. Jenna replied with heart emojis. My finger hovered over Marcus's name, then retreated. Not yet. The picture of my thigh, Ryan's hand just inches away, would come later. The groundwork needed to be laid. Trivia became my religion. I planned my outfits with surgical precision, each one a fraction more revealing than the last. My therapist brain screamed about maladaptive patterns, about reenacting trauma, about the fact that I was essentially conducting a live experiment on my own relationship without consent. I silenced it with equal parts whine and rationalization. I was gathering evidence, not creating chaos. I needed to know if Marcus could still see me, still want me enough to fight for me. The alternative, that he was simply too tired, that our love had quietly starved to death while I wasn't looking, was unbearable. Ryan's attention escalated in direct proportion to my clothing surface area. A hand on my shoulder. A whispered joke that required his lips near my ear. Once, a thumb tracing the small of my back as we squeezed past each other to the bathroom. Each touch was a data point. I documented them all in my phone, time-stamped and coded 9:47 p.m., incidental contact, duration 3 seconds, no reaction from subject. The subject being me, supposedly. But really, the subject was always Marcus. The first time I posted a blurry photo to my private story, Ryan's hand on my knee under the table, my face turned toward the camera in what looked like tipsy laughter, I told myself it was artistic. A study in chiaroscuro, the way the bar lights caught the condensation on my glass. When Jenna DM'd me, "Girl, be careful with that one," I felt a surge of validation. Someone was watching. Someone saw the boundaries blurring. Someone cared enough to warn me. Marcus remained silent. He saw my Instagram stories, he viewed them, the app told me so, but he never said a word. Not "who's that guy?" Not "you look like you're having fun," not "I miss you." The void swallowed my provocations whole, which only made me hungrier, more reckless. The night everything detonated started like any other Tuesday. I'd spent an hour getting ready, choosing a dress that technically belonged to my bachelorette party wardrobe, a slinky thing Marcus had once loved in private but would never want me wearing in public. I told myself I was reclaiming my sexuality, whatever that means. Really, I was loading a gun. I arrived at 7, ordered a round of shots before anyone else showed up. Liquid courage, I called it. Behavior disinhibition secondary to ethanol consumption, my training manual would call it. When Ryan slid into the booth next to me instead of across, I didn't move away. When his hand found my thigh 10 minutes later, I leaned into it, laughing at a joke I didn't hear. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic warning I chose to ignore. This was it. This was the moment that would finally crack through Marcus's exhaustion and make him see me. My phone stayed face up on the table. Every buzz made me jolt. Was he watching? The private story was live. I'd posted a video of Ryan's fingers tracing patterns on my skin, captioned "Some Tuesdays are more interesting than others." The views ticked up. Jenna, Sarah, Mike. Marcus's name remained stubbornly absent. Ryan's hand moved higher. His breath smelled like whiskey and entitlement. "You're so different when you're not being the good fiancé," he murmured. The word landed like a slap. Good fiancé, was that all I'd become? A role, a set of acceptable behaviors. I let his fingers dip under the hem of my dress, my eyes fixed on the door. Any minute now, Marcus would walk in, see this violation, and finally, his eyes would focus on me with the intensity I remembered. He'd pull Ryan off me. He'd wrap his jacket around my shoulders. He'd see what his absence had cost us. The door opened. A couple I didn't know. The door opened again. A group of loud college kids. Ryan's hand continued its exploration, and I sat frozen, a statue of my own making. My phone screen stayed dark. No texts, no calls, no anything. At 10:32 p.m. I posted the final video, not to the private story, to my main feed. No caption, just the visual: Ryan's hand clearly on my ass, my face tilted back in what looked like ecstasy. I tagged the location. I tagged O'Malley's. I made sure it was shareable, savable, permanent. Then I ordered another shot and waited for my life to explode. It took 17 minutes. My phone rang, Jenna frantic. "What are you doing? Take that down." I ignored her. 2 minutes later, Sarah texted, "Marcus is going to see this." Exactly, I thought, that's the point. The door swung open at 10:54 p.m., but it wasn't Marcus. It was his best friend David, his face a mask of disgust and pity. "He's not coming," David said, his voice flat. "He asked me to check on you. To make sure you were okay." The subtext hit like a physical blow. Marcus was so unbothered, so distanced, that he could outsource his concern. David's eyes tracked Ryan's hand, still on my body. "You should probably stop that," he said to Ryan, but his contempt was aimed at me. The judgment in his gaze was everything I'd feared, but also, perversely, everything I'd craved. Someone was reacting. Someone saw me as a problem worth addressing. Ryan removed his hand, suddenly sheepish. We were just having fun, man. She didn't say no. The excuse of every man who'd ever taken what wasn't offered. I should have corrected him. Should have said the words I'd practiced in therapy sessions. I didn't consent. I froze. This isn't my fault. But I didn't. I let the implication stand because it was easier than admitting I'd engineered the entire scenario. David left without another word. He didn't offer me a ride, didn't ask if I needed help. I watched him go, my stomach a pit of cold dread. I'd got my reaction, just not from the person I'd wanted it from. Marcus had sent a proxy, a clear message, you're not my problem anymore. I finally deleted the video at midnight, but screenshots had already spread through our social circle like a virus. My phone became a kaleidoscope of judgment. WTF were you thinking? Is this a joke? Does Marcus know? The only person who didn't reach out was Marcus himself. His silence was a wall I couldn't scale, a door I'd locked from the inside. The next morning I woke to find my engagement ring in its velvet box on my nightstand. No note, just the ring and the ghost of his presence. I called him 17 times, texted apologies that grew increasingly desperate. It wasn't what it looked like. I need you to understand. Please, just talk to me. He read them all. The read receipts taunted me, but he never replied. The worst decision I made that week wasn't the bar performance. It was what came after. In a panic, I created a new private group chat evidence collection and added the 3 people I thought might still be on my side. Jenna, Sarah, and a coworker named Ben who'd always been a little too interested in my drama. I started posting screenshots of Marcus's silence, the read receipts, the lack of response, the way he'd viewed my stories but never reacted. Does this seem like someone who ever cared? I typed, I'm the victim here. He emotionally abandoned me first. The mental gymnastics were Olympic level. I'd spent years counseling teenagers against exactly this behavior, weaponizing victimhood, reframing accountability, creating echo chambers of validation. But doing it for myself felt like survival. I needed a narrative where I wasn't the architect of my own destruction. So I built one where Marcus's clinical rotation schedule was emotional abuse, where his exhaustion was neglect, where my public humiliation was a proportional response to private abandonment. Jenna was the first to crack. You need to stop, she texted privately. You're making this worse. He saw the video. Everyone saw the video. This isn't about his work schedule anymore. I responded by blocking her from the group chat and posting a long, rambling monologue about how women are never believed when they cry for help. The performative feminism was grotesque, especially coming from someone using feminist language to justify her own betrayal. Sarah left the chat voluntarily. Ben stayed, but his contributions grew increasingly uncomfortable. You deserve someone who fights for you, he wrote after I'd posted another screenshot of Marcus's silence. Someone who sees your worth. The subtext was clear and I was too broken to care. I let his validation feed the beast of my defensiveness. The public dimension escalated when someone, I still don't know who, shared one of my poor me posts to a local Facebook group. Not the original video, but my rambling defense about emotional neglect. The comments were brutal. Maybe don't cheat if you want sympathy. This is why men don't trust women. She's rewriting history because she got caught. I read every single one, feeding on the pain like a penance. My mother called, her voice tight with disappointment. I raised you better than this. My sister sent a text, I'm staying out of it, but for what it's worth, you look desperate. Each comment was a needle under my skin, but I couldn't stop picking at the wound. I'd posted the evidence. I'd built the stage. Now I had to perform the role of tragic heroine, even if the audience was throwing rotten fruit. Marcus remained a ghost. His social media went dark. Our mutual friends reported that he'd thrown himself into work, taking extra shifts, sleeping at the hospital. The residency he'd resented became his refuge. I was a disease he'd cut out with surgical precision. The breaking point came 2 weeks later, when David finally responded to my 11th email, not with forgiveness, but with a forwarded message. It was from Marcus, sent to his closest friends the day after the bar incident. If anyone sees Jenna's friend, please make sure she's safe. I can't be the one to do it anymore. I'm attaching something so you understand why. Below that, a link. I clicked it with trembling fingers, expecting the video, expecting more evidence of my shame. Instead, I found a password-protected forum. The password was in the email Tuesday Chronicles. My blood turned to ice. The forum had 43 members, all men. And in the archive, buried beneath threads about sports and video games, was every single photo and video I'd ever posted to my private story. Not just the recent ones, everything, going back 6 months. Each post had timestamps, comments, ratings. She's escalating. Classic borderline behavior. He's handling this perfectly. They'd been watching me self-destruct in real time, a case study in emotional manipulation. And Marcus, my Marcus, had been the one to share it. The realization crashed over me like a wave of acid. I thought I was running a private experiment. I thought the silence meant he wasn't paying attention. Instead, he'd been documenting my deterioration for an audience, crowdsourcing his emotional distance, turning my pain into a spectator sport. The betrayal was so symmetrical it was poetic. I tried to manufacture a crisis to force his love. He turned my crisis into a group therapy session for his own detachment. That night I drove to his apartment at 3 a.m. and pounded on the door until his neighbor threatened to call the police. When he finally opened it, he looked like a stranger. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by something harder, emptier. "You shared my private posts," I whispered, my voice cracking. He didn't deny it. "You posted them, Clara. You made them public. I just showed them to people who needed to understand why I was leaving. You ghosted me. You cheated on me, with an audience." While documenting it, his tone was clinical, diagnostic. I needed a professional opinion on whether this was salvageable. The consensus was no. The word consensus broke something in me. Our relationship reduced to a poll. My pain curated for commentary. I'd been so focused on my own experiment that I'd missed his entirely. He'd been running parallel tests, measuring my betrayal, calculating his exit strategy with the same methodical precision he used for surgical procedures. I tried the defense I'd rehearsed in the group chat. "You emotionally abandoned me first." He laughed, a hollow sound. "I worked 70-hour weeks to build a life for us. You spent those weeks trying to make me jealous. One of those is a betrayal, Clara. The other is adulthood." The truth of it hit like a sledgehammer. I'd weaponized my psychology degree against him, pathologizing his effort, dramatizing his exhaustion, turning his dedication into neglect. I'd wanted a grand gesture, a cinematic rescue. He'd been building a future in increments, in missed dinners and early mornings, and the steady accumulation of security. I'd mistaken stability for apathy. I left his apartment with nothing resolved, the ring still in its box on my nightstand like a tiny coffin for the life I'd murdered. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and self-recrimination. I'd spent months creating a narrative where I was the victim of emotional neglect, but the real neglect had been my own refusal to see him, to see us. The days that followed were a masterclass in consequence. David blocked me on everything, but not before posting a vague but damning status. Sometimes the person you think is the victim is actually the architect. Everyone knew who he meant. My DMs filled with people I'd considered friends, now demanding explanations. I tried the victim narrative once more, posting about emotional abandonment, but the comments turned hostile. "Girl, he shared the receipts, you played yourself." Jenna's final message was the cleanest cut. "You used me. You used my friends. You used your own trauma as a weapon. I can't be part of this anymore. Get actual therapy, not performance therapy." The professional fallout arrived next. Someone, likely a parent of one of my teenage patients, sent my posts to the clinic director. Dr. Chen called me into her office, her face a mask of professional disappointment. "Clara, your social media activity is violating our ethics policy. You're modeling the exact behavior we teach our clients to avoid." She placed me on administrative leave pending an internal review. My entire career, built on helping broken kids find healthy patterns, collapsed because I couldn't follow my own advice. Ben from the group chat made his move, sliding into my DMs with a sympathy that felt predatory. "You deserve better anyway. Want to get a drink?" I blocked him, finally recognizing his validation for what it was: vulture behavior. He wasn't interested in justice. He was interested in the aftermath. The social media aspect metastasized. A local influencer got hold of the story, how I still don't know, and created a relationship red flag series using my posts as examples. She blurred my face, but not enough. The comments section turned into a feeding frenzy. "This is why you don't stick your dick in crazy." He dodged a bullet. "She's going to do this to the next guy too." They weren't wrong. My mother stopped taking my calls. My sister texted, "You need to leave town for a while. Seriously, people are talking." I checked my Instagram notifications. I'd gained 3,000 followers, all rubbernecking at the train wreck. I set my account to private, but it was too late. The internet is forever, and so is small-town gossip. I spent a week in my apartment, curtains drawn, surviving on delivery and self-loathing. The worst part wasn't the public humiliation. It was the private clarity. In the silence, without an audience to perform for, I had to sit with the truth I'd engineered my own abandonment because I was too cowardly to admit I was unhappy. Too attached to the narrative of myself as the long-suffering partner of a distant doctor to see that the distance was my own creation. I'd wanted Marcus to be the villain so badly that I became one instead. The final truth, the one I've been avoiding even in this confession, came to me at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday exactly 1 month after the bar. I was deleting old photos, purging evidence of my old life, when I found the original files. Not the posts I'd shared, but the raw footage. And in the metadata, buried in the timestamp details, I saw I'd started the livestream 17 minutes before Ryan touched me. Not after, not during, before. I remembered then, with stomach-churning clarity, pulling out my phone while Ryan was in the bathroom, starting the stream, positioning the camera on the table to catch the booth at the perfect angle. I'd planned the entire thing, start to finish, down to the angle of my laugh and the tilt of my head. The alcohol had been a prop. The dress had been costume. Even my shock when David appeared had been rehearsed in my mind a dozen times. The real experiment hadn't been testing Marcus's love. It had been testing whether I could feel anything at all. And the answer was only when I was being watched. Only when I was performing. Only when I was destroying something beautiful. I realized I'd never actually wanted Marcus to rescue me. I'd wanted him to witness my self-immolation and validate it with his pain. I'd wanted proof that my suffering was real, even if I had to manufacture both the suffering and the audience. The Tuesday Chronicles weren't about him. They were about me, broadcasting my own emptiness to anyone who would watch. I checked the forum link one last time. It was still active. Still password protected. I scrolled through the comments from those 43 men, Marcus's secret jury, and found his final post before he deleted his account. Update: she showed up at my apartment. Confronted me about the forum. Still doesn't understand that documentation isn't betrayal. Betrayal is building a relationship on performance and calling it love. He was right. He'd always been right. I'm telling this story now because yesterday I saw him, not Marcus, David, at the grocery store with a woman I didn't recognize. They were laughing over avocados, the kind of mundane intimacy I'd spent years craving and then systematically poisoning. He saw me, and his smile vanished. He leaned down, whispered something to the woman, and they left their cart and walked out. I was still toxic. Still the person people fled from. But more than that, I'm telling it because of what happened this morning. One of my teenage patients, the girl who self-harms, sent me a DM from a fake account. Dr. Chen says you're on leave because you had a breakdown. Is that true? She'd found the influencer's videos. She'd recognized my blurred face, my specific dress, the way I hold my drink. I thought you were supposed to be the one who had it all figured out, she wrote. But you're just like us. Worse maybe, because you knew better. That message broke me in a way nothing else had. Not Marcus leaving, not the forum, not the professional humiliation. Because she was right. I did know better. I'd spent my career teaching kids that healing requires honesty, that you can't perform your way to connection, that victimhood is a pit stop, not a destination. And I'd used every tool in my therapeutic arsenal to avoid my own truth. The ring is still in its box. I haven't been able to throw it away, but I can't look at it either. It sits in my underwear drawer, a cold circle of failure. Dr. Chen wants me to attend a hearing next week about my professional license. My lawyer, yes, I had to get a lawyer, says the ethics violation is serious but probably not career-ending. Probably. Marcus's lawyer sent a cease and desist about the forum posts, claiming I was harassing him by continuing to discuss the situation online. The irony would be delicious if it weren't choking me. I keep thinking about that night at O'Malley's, replaying it like a film I can't stop watching. Only now I see the director's commentary. Every choice was mine. Every escalation. Every humiliation. I wasn't a victim of Ryan's wandering hands. I was the architect of my own public execution, and I handed Marcus the blade, then demanded he thank me for the honor. The people who watched the stream, who commented on the forum, who shared the screenshots, they saw what I wanted them to see. A woman unraveling, a man distancing, a relationship dying in real time. What they didn't see was the rehearsals, the planning, the cold calculation behind every drunken stumble. I wasn't losing control. I was finally, disastrously, in complete control of my own destruction. So here I am, telling you everything because I don't know how else to exist now that the performance is over. The audience has gone home. The curtain has fallen. And I'm left on this empty stage, still in costume, still waiting for someone to clap and make this all worthwhile. But the only sound is my own voice, echoing back at me, saying things I should have said months ago. I was wrong. I was cruel. I was the villain who thought she was the heroine. Maybe you're reading this thinking I'm a monster. Maybe you're thinking I'm just broken and need help. Both are true. The clinical term is narcissistic wound with borderline features and malignant self-awareness. The human term is I fucked up beyond repair because I was too scared to say I'm unhappy and too proud to say I need you. Marcus didn't ghost me. He survived me. And the Tuesday Chronicles are still out there, floating in the digital ether, waiting for the next person who needs proof that love can survive anything. It can't. Love can survive a lot, distance, exhaustion, boredom, even betrayal. But it cannot survive being turned into content. It cannot survive being performed instead of lived. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anyone to. I just need you to understand that the scariest thing about watching yourself destroy everything isn't the destruction. It's the moment you realize you were directing the whole time, and you still couldn't stop.